Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber, and joining me, as always, is my awesome co-host, the intellectual rock star himself, Delicious Dwaylen Davis.
Hey, everybody.
And yes, the name Stunning is now stuck. Like I
That's
said,
it. That's the one. Yeah.
when I walked into Covington, and people who had listened or watched the podcast, actually were calling me Stunning Steve, and
Hey.
I was like, you know what, it's there. So, and Kyle did confirm to me, yes, he was the one who started calling me that. He texted me, so thank you, Kyle. You know, so um, so that is now the nickname. So, we're gonna have to start calling Kyle the nickname maker because
Yeah. Yeah. That's
he, he heard the name Delicious. You've been called Delicious, and said, you know what, that ought to be a nickname. And well, it is.
yeah.
So, which means now we need to have T-shirts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but uh, on tonight's episode, I actually thought about this topic just because of something that happened this weekend at the NWF event, and it's not really been broadcast live. It wasn't anything that was um, like caused a scene or anything necessarily, but it was an interaction between a wrestler who's a heel and he was trying to get heat, and he kind of, well, he insulted one of the fans, and it's actually, this fan is a friend of ours.
hmm
um and it actually was a very, very personal insult.
Yeah.
um and it left her in tears. um but I decided, I suggested it to Joel. It's like, what happens when fans and or wrestlers go too far? And so, because we've seen other examples of wrestlers, kind of going too far with the fans, but
hmm
we definitely see fans going too far with wrestlers. And
Yeah.
um, you normally see that on the bigger stages because the wrestlers, I mean, their life, I mean, they live under a microscope. So,
Yeah.
um, and I know of at least one example that happened about a year and a half ago, but we'll get into that, as we get into the story. But and there is a very good possibility that we might have someone joining us tonight. And if when that happens, then we will kind of stop whatever we're doing and we will actually bring our guest in. So we looks like we're also having another show tomorrow, and we're also having a show on Wednesday. And if things and we're scheduled to have a show on Thursday, we might have a guest on that show. Not sure yet.
hmm
And all of this is in support of the Northern Wrestling Federation Women's Revolution Rising event that is happening this Saturday in Covington at the Hits Baseball Complex. It's going to be a fun show, and it was a great show last year. It outgrew the building it was in already, like the night of that it
hmm
happened, and so they were able to secure the Hits Baseball Complex. So if you get a chance to go to it, go to it, especially if you're in the Cincinnati area. I know a lot of people are going to be traveling this weekend because it is Memorial Day weekend. So if part of your travels are taking you to Cincinnati or close to Cincinnati, go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun time. That's when they had it last year too. It was over Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
But we support NWF. We support women's wrestling, and we definitely support NWF women's wrestling.
Absolutely.
So, um, but um, and as far as like anybody wants to contact, I'll go ahead and give our contact list and info now. By the way, I timed that perfectly last week.
hmm
Or the other day when I said maybe we'll have it scrolling. Right about the time I said that, it was actually at that same mark. The email address and the
Oh, okay.
merch came scrolling through. So I might get it timed right. I might not. I don't know. But you should see the info for our social media, our Facebook, our the Twitter, the TikTok, the YouTube, Instagram, all that scrolling through here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, however, if you want to email the show, it's armchairbookingpodcast at gmail.com. You can find us on facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. Find us on Instagram, the same thing. On Twitter, it's at bookingarmchair. On TikTok, it's at armchairbooking. on YouTube. Obviously, you can also find it at Armchair Booking Podcast because it won't let me put Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. That's just it's too many characters. Won't let me do it. Um, but you can also find Dwaylen on his personal Twitter at fat_daddy73. But Dwaylen also has his own podcast now called The Intellectual Rockstar, where he talks all about all sorts of nerdy stuff. And I enjoy it because I'm kind of a nerdy kind of person myself, and that's how Dwaylen and I we became such good friends because of rock music, actually all kinds of music really. But
Yeah.
we're in the same ACDC shirt, but then we also discovered we both like wrestling. Then we also discovered we both like chess, and we were both officers on the chess club. There's not too many more things that can make you more nerdy than that.
Exactly.
And you can actually, if you watch the YouTube, one of the pictures in the intro video is of me and Dwaylen. It is from our yearbook. Thanks to our friend Alan Thomas for actually scanning that and sending it to me. And it's me and Dwaylen when we were the officers in the chess club, and they took the pictures for the yearbook. And I'm actually standing right behind Dwaylen. He was the vice president. I was a secretary. I didn't do much, but all we did during
I have that as sometimes I put that as my profile picture on Facebook.
Yep, I have definitely seen it. I'm like, yeah. So, but like I said, go check out the Intellectual Rockstar podcast. Waylon also has a TikTok and a YouTube channel with his wife Hope. He is Big Daddy. He is Fat Daddy. She is Big Mama. I'm pretty sure if I reversed that, I would have got a knock on my door because she would have come and punched me in the face.
Oh yeah, she'd have drove up there. Yeah.
So, but Big Mama, Fat Daddy, not the Big Mama for NWF. Although she might be coming on the show tomorrow night. She's one of the guests for this week. But just go look for Big and Fat. That's actually, if you look on YouTube, because actually your YouTube channel, you actually have numbers after that. It's like 2155. It's something I know YouTube assigned to it.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But it's there. Just go. You can go find them. And also, you can find my other podcast, The Cubicle Chat, which is similar to the nerdy, except for I just kind of talk about everything but wrestling. It ain't true.
Yeah.
Just like today, I actually record an episode today where I talked about exotic animals. So the reason why, or exotic pets, really, the reason why is because we just acquired a chameleon for a pet.
Oh wow.
Yes, they don't do anything. She just sits in a tree, just and looks around with what my daughter describes as her security camera eyes. So you see them, it's like you see them just kind of rolling around and give me the side eye all the time. Like,
right.
I have seen her eat a cricket though, because that's one of the things also with if you have like a live chameleon, you also inherit sort of in a way live crickets as pets, but they're not really pets. They're there for the chameleon. And yeah, and not for the chameleon to love on, definitely not. But all of a sudden you see this tongue, which is about as long as the chameleon, reach out. It's like, okay, I can't watch the carnage anymore.
Right.
But yep. So you ever had any kind of exotic pet?
No. Nah.
Yeah, the only thing close for us to being exotic was when we were in England. Avery had a pet hamster for a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hamsters are still considered exotic, apparently.
Yeah, it's weird, but
I'm trying to figure out where you find hamsters in the wild. I have yet to see a hamster in the wild.
Yeah.
So at some point they got them in a pet store, and they're like, you know what, just get them all, and we won't let them out in the wild anymore. And you only find them in pet stores, apparently. But back to the subject at hand. So, yeah, this past weekend, one of the wrestlers, I'm not gonna say who, because I don't really want to, start anything, called attention to a fan's. So they have a medical condition. I just leave it kind of at that. And he actually said something kind of bad about it, actually.
Yeah.
And it left her in tears. Now he may not know that she has this condition. I mean, I will purposely by saying that. But because some people have, things like this, and it's not a medical condition. It's just just have
But
that.
even
But
still,
even
it's
then,
like
yeah,
that was a little too personal to
it
use to
was
get some heat. Yeah.
right. It was a little too personal, um, and it left her in tears. And I guess they have addressed it with the wrestler. Hey, yeah, there's heat, and then there's, you've almost cost us a fan, and yes, I do get the side of, well, if you're a fan and you're heckling, which is part of the show, they even encourage you to heckle.
Hmm.
You should expect something verbal at least to come back
Yeah,
at you.
and I agree. You should expect, you should expect a response, but I just still think you went a little far with that.
Yeah, he did go a little far. Um, and
And I'm not
it,
saying that he did it on purpose to just be, mean. He was in heel mode and he was playing a
mhm,
character. It's just sometimes those things can get out of hand
yeah.
real quick.
Um, and and this fan, she's actually a friend of ours.
Hmm.
She watches
Yep.
the show. Um, and so that's another reason why we're like,
Yeah. It's like,
and so I mean, sometimes we have to kind of separate ourselves from that, going, all right, let me kind of push myself away, say if
yeah.
I didn't know the person, and we would feel the same way though, because
Oh
we
yeah,
still feel,
absolutely.
yeah, he went too far. And and that's just this that kind of does bear that question of, when is it considered too far?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now physically attacking a fan, yeah, that's drawing a line that's going to get you arrested. If
Yeah.
you were a fan attacking a wrestler, it's going to get you arrested.
Yeah,
Um,
that happened with CM Punk when he was still in WWE, except he hit the wrong fan.
I remember
Like
that.
he was in the crowd because he was the heel and he had run from whoever had the face had come in, and he was clutching the title, and a fan punched him in the shoulder or the side of the head or something, and CM Punk turned around and like
And
just like,
crack, crack, crack. He
yeah,
popped,
but
but
it
he
was
hit
the
the wrong
wrong
guy.
fan. Yeah, it was the guy
Yep.
on the other side. But on that, I can't really fault Punk. It's like somebody hits me,
Hmm.
somebody attacks me, I'm going to respond. It's like he didn't know where it was coming from. He just knew somebody close to me had hit me. So
And I don't know why people, they get this mindset, especially if liquid courage is involved, before all of a sudden they do think they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof and they can just fight anybody.
yeah, and it's like, and even if it's not liquid courage, it's stupidity and it's disrespectful. It's like these men and women are here putting on a show for you. I know you paid. People think when they pay a ticket to get in to see a pro wrestling show that just gives them carte blanche to do and say whatever they want. And
Right.
it doesn't. It just means you got a seat to watch this show. That's all your ticket means.
Exactly. And I've gotten to verbal jousting, with
Hmm.
wrestlers before, and it was all in fun. Um,
Right.
you know, um, and part of it was Rex, when he was still a heel, when he was still part of the
Hmm.
Hollywood Blondes. This was in Mount Orb, and he's like, "Man, you were one ugly dude." First, and I'm also thinking, is that the best you got? Seriously, you look at this, and
Yeah.
that's
It's like that's all
um,
you got.
all you got. And um, Leighton was with me when he said it, and I was about to come back with something, but I had to remember Leighton was with me, and I'm like, all right,
Like,
got to keep this family
oh
friendly.
yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, I had a your mom something, coming out, but I decided to
Hmm.
kind of hold back. But I think that was also the same show where Gideon Weinstein was with them, and because they were actually out twice. Um, once for, I think, Adam Swayze, and the other one for Rex, at the
Hmm.
main event. And when Leighton was up there getting boo boo, then he looked at me and said, "You're adopted." And it caught Gideon Weinstein off guard. you know, he was like, "What?" He's like, "Man, that's just mean." And then, of course, the next time Weinstein came about, he comes. I mean, he specifically comes around the ring, looks at Leighton, boo boo, "You're adopted." And I about fell out of my chair laughing. but I mean, I also know it's part of the show. I've never,
Yeah, yeah,
I've never felt like a wrestler has ever said anything to me, um, that was personal.
right.
And maybe it's because I mean I've gotten to know them all personally already,
Yeah.
and they apparently they know who I am, because they even when I went into the show the other day, they always stamp your hand, if you're
Hmm.
general admission, or they give you a little bracelet to put on, the little paper thing, with
Yeah.
like orange or green or whatever if you're one of the front row. Um, well, I paid and then I walked past and I was talking, and actually I was talking to Riley Matthews. Then I realized, hey, they didn't stamp me. And I told the dude, and he's one of the trainees. I was like, "Hey, dude, you didn't stamp me." He's like, "Oh," he's like, "We know who you are."
Yeah, we know
I
you
was
are.
like, yeah, I was like, "All right," and I guess, yeah, I'm here. I'm here enough. So, because I usually hit every Mount Orb and Covington, show. It's just the other ones. It's hard for me to get to because one maybe the Fairfield shows because of just the distance from where I live,
Yeah.
and the Ludlow because of the parking situation. That and I can't. Um, my wife has actually asked me not to go to wrestling shows every weekend,
Mm-mm. Yeah.
because I do need to spend, my family is my priority. So,
Right.
um,
Yep.
but all right, you know the rules. You got to come say hi. Your screwdriver should be on the other side of that box. You know the rules. Fine. Sorry about that, folks. I just got interrupted, and my wife apparently, she wants to disregard the rules that say if you walk in and interrupt the broadcast, then you have to come show your face. She's looking for
And
a
she's like,
screwdriver.
nah.
Nah,
She's
yeah,
like, nah, I'm not doing
yeah, she is looking for a screwdriver, and I was the last person to use it because I was doing some repairs to our bathroom door over the weekend,
that. Ah.
and yeah, I can't find the screwdriver. I'm like, it's over there, I promise, along with the drill, because I was having to use the drill with the drill bit with the screwdriver on it to try to get some of them things off. And
Hmm.
I lost my Leatherman, and that actually kind of makes me sad. I've had that Leatherman now.
Ah.
Yeah, I've had it now for 22 years almost. Issued to me by the Air Force when I was stationed up in Dayton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, and I went to go look up one time because I thought I'd lost it one time before how much they are, and I was like, oh my god, they paid a lot for it because they gave everybody in our unit one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I saw how expensive they are, and I was like, woo, they spent a lot of money on these. But anyway, um, what was I saying before? I got interrupted by my wife looking for a screwdriver.
Let me think. I can't remember.
Oh, well,
I
we're
can't.
talking about, let's see, the Gideon Weinstein adopted. Um,
Oh, not going to a wrestling show every
yeah, not
weekend.
going to the wrestling show every weekend. Yeah, because my wife, who just interrupted, has asked me, hey, can you spend some time with your family? Now, so basically the only ones I go to right now, I mean, there could be exceptions, at some point in the future, but the ones in Mount Orb and Covington. Um,
Hmm.
now Ludlow, I mean, I will tell you the energy there is just intense. It is hard to explain because it's an enclosed area, so the noise doesn't really have anywhere to go. Um,
Right.
so it's like everybody's all the energy. The wrestlers are feeding off the fans are feeding off the wrestlers. I mean, and it's uh, really, really exciting. You just can't help but feel that. Um, and now Ludlow doesn't hold as many people because of just. Um, I mean, it's like in the back of a bar, to be honest with you, and
Hmm.
it looks like Fight Club. Um, but there's just something about it. I mean, that's really cool.
Right.
So now the parking sucks. I'm not even going to try to pretend like that. I mean, the parking situation there really sucks. Um, but all the other ones, Mount Orb, I mean, they have a nice big parking lot. The baseball complex, the parking's a little hairy there, especially if they have a huge crowd, because so you would know like parking on like the side of a road, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's out. It's not like on a main road, whereas Ludlow is like in the middle of town, So makes it really hard to
Hmm.
try to find a parking spot. Um, but uh, so the whole thing about the wrestlers going too far, and well, one of the things, um, when a wrestler is trying to get heat, and this is what something we were discussing before we started recording. Um, you can't use the same insult on everybody
Yeah, unless you're Rick Rude.
unless you're Rick Rude. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
but but there's some insults, some things you could say to somebody, and even though yeah, it's an insult, it won't be taken as bad if you unless you said it to somebody um I'll just say from a different background.
yeah, yep,
So
hmm,
um
yeah,
yeah, because if somebody, they're trying to insult me and they're trying to fight me and they walk up and call me boy,
yeah,
I'll be like, what? Excuse me? Because that looks like they're trying to throw. Now, if they walked up to you as a black man and said the same
hmm,
thing,
has a whole
yeah, a
different,
whole different
whole
meaning.
different meaning. Yeah, and it's like, no, sir, absolutely not.
Yeah. Um, because one of the wrestlers actually, that's one of his things is he calls his opponents, look here, boy. And I'm like, you may want to be careful because you say it to the wrong one, you may have some fans jumping in there for real, and
Hmm,
they are not going to be happy with you.
yeah,
Um,
it's kind of it's like along the lines. It was that storyline with Triple H and Booker T. It
that
was
one, yeah,
stuff like that. It was like I don't know how anybody who wrote that or the wrestlers themselves or Vince McMahon or anybody involved in that storyline did not see that it was a racially motivated storyline. There was no way. I mean, everything that was
it,
being said, like talking about Booker T's nappy hair, saying that people like him didn't deserve to be world champion and just different stuff. And it's like, and then for him not to win, it was the worst part of it.
oh, and to add on, wasn't at the same time when he dropped the pedigree and then he
Yeah. And
waited
then
like
and
three
it was like
minutes
20,
before
yeah, they said it
it
was
was a
like
long
23
time
seconds before he
before he
crawled
pinned.
over to make the
Yeah,
pin. And Booker T just had to lay there and be humiliated at WrestleMania.
at
It's like,
WrestleMania.
come on. It's like, you put this man in this racial, you know, storyline, and then you can't even let the man win it.
And I don't know if Vince McMahon wrote it, but he had to have approved it.
He okayed it, yeah,
Yeah,
because nothing, especially at that point in time, nothing got done without Vince McMahon's okay. So he okayed it. So he
yeah.
didn't see anything wrong with it. But you ask any other wrestling fan that's watched that, and they'll all tell you the same thing. It's like it was in poor taste, even
Hmm.
as much as like them trying to pay Booker T to carry his bag and all this stuff. It's like just stop. It's
No,
like
my
no,
lord.
yeah.
Why would they think that would be okay to put, in a
And the thing is,
storyline?
and here's the thing: none of that was needed. Booker T was already over. None
Right.
of that was needed to make him a sympathetic babyface. He was already over. Triple H was the hated heel who had the death grip on the world title. People wanted Booker T to win. The same people that wanted Booker T to beat Triple H are the same people that followed Booker T all through WCW. And
And
that he
yeah,
didn't he didn't need this terrible storyline to make people care. People already cared.
and Triple H, Paul Levesque, I've never thought of him, as being even a closeted racist. Um,
No, and nothing's ever, because eventually in wrestling, anything like that eventually comes out. And I've never read or heard anybody say anything about him being racist. I know he's a company guy and he was probably like, well, this is what they're saying we need to do. So we're going to go out and do it and make the best of it. And it's like, but there was no making the best of that storyline
no.
at all.
I mean, I've read some things about Vince, and it was not an excuse, but it was where and when he grew up. Because he grew up near Cherry Point, um, or yeah, Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Station,
Hmm.
and this was when the military was starting to be integrated. At least
Hmm.
the Marines were. The Air Force was the first to integrate.
Hmm.
I just got to say that. Shout out Air Force.
Shout
So, but the Marine
out to the
Corps,
Air Force.
shout out to the Air Force. But the Marine Corps, they were, this is like the early 50s, so they were
Hmm.
still integrating, and I had read that he was getting into fights with, some of the black Marines who were there,
Hmm.
you know, because Marines will be Marines. It does not matter,
Yeah. Yeah.
what they look like. A Marine is going to be a Marine. That includes my
Hmm.
nephew, who I'll probably get to see this weekend. But a
Oh,
Marine's going
cool.
to be, yeah, yeah, a Marine's going to be a Marine, and of course, them growing up, where that may have been like the first black people they ever saw, yeah, because the area grew up,
Yeah.
and so it kind of gave him a weird look on things, which as an adult, you would hope that he would put those things aside, but every
Oh
once in a while,
no,
but
he didn't though. I don't feel like, because it's like, not only did he go through when he was ECW champion and he had the do rag on and he was talking with all the slang and all this, and it's like, stop. You were an old white dude. Just
was that when he
none of
dropped?
that.
Was that when he dropped the N word with the A?
No, hell, that was later. That was at Survivor Series because Booker T was backstage. Booker T and
Him and Charmel
Charmel,
both, and they're like,
they were like, it panned over and they're standing there and Booker T's like, tell me
"Tell
he
me."
didn't just say that. But the look on his face was like, I'm not saying this in character. I'm really saying I can't believe he said that, because Vince said it to
Yeah,
John Cena.
to John Cena, and
And
I
then
mean,
but it's like,
it was one of the things.
just because,
Even if he got Booker T's approval, which you would think that hopefully,
I don't see
but
that happening. Yeah.
but I also can't see Booker T just standing there either. Even though, yeah,
Yeah.
it would have cost him his job and a lot of money, but at the same time, you know, um, that was like the moments that make you feel uncomfortable watching.
Yes.
So
And I saw a clip of it. I don't know why it popped up like on my YouTube feed the other day, and I watched it again, and it's just like, I can't believe they did this. I know it's been edited out on the network
yeah,
or on Peacock or whatever. That got
right.
edited out, which, as it should. But it's still on YouTube. Anybody doesn't know what we're talking about,
Just go look for it.
type in just type in Vince McMahon Survivor Series. I'm sure it'll pop up, and just see for yourself. And between him using the N word, and then when he got his head shaved at WrestleMania, then he started wearing the do rag and
Well, then
all
there's been
this, trying to
there's
talk jive and all this, and it's like, just
and
stop.
there's been other complaints here recently. I think it was Apollo Crews has actually said that the gimmick, which he
Yes.
did do part of, but you could almost tell his heart really wasn't into it.
Yeah, he wasn't into. You could tell he was literally. It wasn't one of those cases where this was this was him with the volume turned up. This was just literally him playing a part, because you could tell he was not about that at all.
Of course, the ironic thing about Booker T, and they may have been doing this almost as a weird kind of tasteless joke on Booker T. They're like, remember how you use that word when you talk about Hulk Hogan?
Yeah,
So,
but it's like,
but that one was funny in a way because it was totally just he didn't
it
mean
was
to
an
do it.
accident.
He was just caught
Yeah,
up in the moment and it just said.
exactly. And the thing is, it's like, I Booker T's black. He gets to say it. I'm sorry. It's just how it goes. And it's like, but like you said, he was caught up in the moment in a promo, and it just came out. And as soon as he said it, he was like, oh.
It's like, ooh,
Props to Stevie Ray, because Stevie Ray just kept going like Booker T didn't even say it. He was just like,
Cher Martell, she looked like she was about to pee herself laughing though.
oh yeah, she was about to laugh, and she's patting him on the shoulder like it's okay. And Mean Gene's like, oh, okay, we're gonna move over here.
We're gonna move over here. So,
But
um,
like with the Triple H Booker T thing, that's a case of a wrestler taking things too far. I mean, because
yeah,
some of the insults that Triple H was throwing at Booker T were extremely personal insults, especially about
hmm
his especially about his time when he went to prison. But
That's right. He did. Yep.
the way that Triple H was saying it was like very racist. If you hear it, I hate to just put it out there, but that's just how it sounded, and that's an example of going too far, and that's just a wrestler going too far with another wrestler. The wrestler going too far with a fan. The one that always comes to mind for me is in original ECW. The Dudley Boys were defending the tag titles. They come out first, and they cut a promo. A fan starts heckling them, which, like you said, you're
Hmm.
encouraged to do. Kind of fan interaction helps the product. ECW always had a rabid fan base. But then uh, Bubba Ray took it too far, and it's one thing to insult the guy, but then he brings in the guy's mom and the guy's sister and talks about sexual stuff with them, and it's like, dude, that is way, way
Mm.
too far. That's way too far, and that's the example whenever I think of a wrestler going too far with a fan. If a fan heckles you and you want to heckle them back to an extent, that is fine, as long as you don't get too personal, like we talked about what happened over the weekend. But you start bringing people's family into it,
Hmm.
and that's crossing a line, because it's like, I know for me personally, do not bring my mom or my sister into anything. You know, let's not disparage the women in my family if you don't want a bad reaction from me.
And um, for people who don't know Dwaylen, he's like one of the most calm people you ever meet. But that can all come in, that can all change like
Oh yeah,
in a heartbeat if
I
you start.
I've told people before, don't let the nice guy fool you.
Yeah, because I'll still, you know, I fight dirty. I'll just leave it at
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'll use words first to try to get it done
Oh
quickly.
yeah.
But yeah,
But
um,
if that doesn't work, there's always other means. So,
yep.
but
So,
yeah, Bully Ray, well, he goes by Bully Ray now. Bubba Ray then went way too far. And the Dudleys had a habit of going way too far with fans. Like, Taz would get into it with a fan, but the fan would start with Taz first. And so Taz would give it back to him, and harsh enough to where the fan would shut up. But it was never, Taz never brought anybody's family member or anything. It's like, I'm just going to, what you gave me, I'm going to give it back to you twice as bad and shut you up. But yeah, the Dudleys bringing people's family into it, especially talking about, lewd acts and stuff. It's like, no, that's way too far.
um, one example I think of wrestlers going too far with another wrestler was when um, Paige. Yeah, and I know she was
Oh,
instructed. Yeah, I know she was instructed to do it. You know, um, when they brought up Reed Flair.
oh, yeah. Oh my God. And you could tell, yeah, Paige was the heel,
Hmm.
but you could tell Paige was extremely uncomfortable
Hmm.
with that. I mean, she did what she was told. She did her job, but you could tell she was extremely uncomfortable the entire time she was cutting that promo on Reed, because that was just tasteless. And here's the problem with that. Here's the main problem with that. Neither Ric Flair or Charlotte Flair, that was not cleared with them before Paige cut that promo. Paige was under the assumption that this had all been cleared with them,
Right,
that they knew
because
what was going to happen
because
when
Charlotte brought up Reed first,
Charlotte brought up Reed.
and then Paige
So
said, "Oh,
then,
he was a loser," and da 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 da.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like,
but yeah, but you could tell the look on their face. It was not acting. It was, they had no clue that Paige was going to say this. So
and
not only
Beth
was it
Fleer,
huh?
Rick's, well,
Yeah,
Reed's mom, Beth Fleer,
yeah,
she
Yeah.
also didn't know. She was pretty upset too,
None of
which you know I
yeah, none of
can't
the
blame her.
family had any idea. And the thing is, it's like not only have you disrespected Flair's kid who passed, you disrespected him, you disrespected his entire family, you disrespected Paige because you threw her out there to cut a promo on this kid who just passed away when his family did not give approval for that promo to even exist. And that goes beyond a wrestler crossing the line with another wrestler. That's the promoter crossing the line with an entire family and a
Yes,
wrestler.
yes, and if Charlotte had actually swung for real,
Oh yeah.
and activated Paige's dental plan,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would have blamed her, including Paige.
No, nobody would have blamed her. I'd have felt bad for Paige because again, Paige was thrown to the wolves.
Hmm.
And it's like you can't how do you in good conscience do that? How do you book something like that just to get some cheap heat to build a feud? It's like you didn't need to build the feud. Paige was an excellent heel. She didn't need any she didn't need that type of cheap heat to get over as a heel. It's just it's just tacky. It's just tasteless.
And we've had the same, I guess you want to call it, complaint about WWE for years now. It's not just a recent thing where they start bringing uh, personal issues into the storylines. They did it with Hawk when he was going through substance issues. Um,
Yes. They did
uh,
it. WCW did it with Scott Hall when he
with
was
Scott
going
Hall,
through
same
his
thing.
his issues, and they worked it into the story where he was literally staggering around down to the ring and stopping mid match to get a drink of a beer and stuff. And it's like, this man has substance abuse issues. Why would you play that for laughs? Because that's to me, that's what they were going for is for people to find it funny. And there's nothing funny about it at all.
Yep. The whole thing when Lita, they found out that Lita was having an affair with Edge,
Yeah, it's like,
and that that one to me, oh, and that one, like I said, I mean that one because I know people who know them. They're
yeah.
from at least the Hardys are from the same area I'm from,
Hmm.
and there was people in that area. Oh, they were legitimately like it wasn't just they weren't mad. Oh, I cannot believe these wrestlers. That happened in the storyline. No,
Yeah.
they were like because they knew the Hardys and they had actually met Lita, and they were pissed off on a personal level for their somebody they considered a friend.
Well, yeah, and it's like booking something like that. It's like they didn't think about what the ramifications were going to be. They did it. Oh, we're going to turn her heel and use this as the crux of her, heel turn and all this. But it's like you do know these are real life people who have
Hmm.
lives outside of this that you have just destroyed by broadcasting her personal business for
Yep.
for the world to see. I mean, that that issue was nobody's business except for hers, Matt's, and Edge's.
And
That's
remember, Edge had also just gotten married too.
Edge had just got married. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then his wife gets wind that he's cheating on her. So then, it's just and it was just to get heat on Lita. And it's like you could have found 100 different ways for her to turn heel and get heat besides putting her personal business out there.
And speaking of the Hardys, like, just a few years ago, when they said Jeff Hardy, they brought his
Yeah.
substance issues, into the
Yeah. And I
storyline.
mean, it's like, and I'm not going to lie, when he was feuding with Samoa Joe, yes, they brought his substance abuse stuff to light. And I did not agree with that at all.
Yeah,
But I can't lie and say that I didn't enjoy Samoa Joe's promos just because Samoa Joe is just an amazing promo.
he
And
really is.
he's just an amazing promo and makes anything work. But I still don't agree with, and it's happened multiple times. Like, Sheamus when he feuded with Sheamus, it brought up his substance abuse issues. He feuded with Samoa Joe, they brought it up. When he feuded with CM Punk, they brought it up. And it's like, if you want him to get better, stop throwing it in his face and let him
Exactly.
get better. instead of using it as fodder for your wrestling storylines. Because how is he supposed to get better when you have all these storylines where people keep throwing it in his face? And
And
then when he falls off the wagon, you want to be upset because he's messed up all your plans because he's not sober now. And it's like you kind of have some responsibility in that.
and um, they've actually talked about this, because we were talking about Scott Hall earlier when the NWO came to WWE,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just the three of them, just
Yep.
you know,
The
um,
originals. Yep.
the originals, and
Yep.
well, they put Scott Hall in a feud with Steve Austin,
Yes.
and at one point they had Scott Hall, I guess, like taped down, inside
Yeah.
like a freezer, and they were
Yeah.
pouring beer on him.
Yeah. It's like, no, that's not, no, no. And it's more sensitive to me. Steve understands this. It's more
Hmm.
sensitive to me. I've been sober for 22 years. This is that kind of stuff is a very touchy thing for me. It's like,
I just passed up 10. So,
there you go. See? Um, and I just, I will never agree with a wrestling promoter using someone's personal issues, especially substance abuse issues, as a plot device for a storyline.
and you know what was worse about that one? Scott Hall was on Antabuse at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
For those who don't know what Antabuse is, it is a medicine that if you are um, battling alcohol addiction, you take Antabuse because even the smell will make you
Will
want
make
to
you
throw
sick.
up. Yeah, it will
Yeah.
make you sick. And so there he was. They had his mouth taped up, and yes, it was
Hmm.
part of the thing
Yeah.
with
But
the
he was
smell
still
of
smelling
beer.
it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he could have puked into his mouth and not
Uh-huh.
been able to do anything
Yep. Yep.
with it. So that meant he'd
It,
either have to try to swallow or he could have choked to death.
yeah. It's just that's again another example of that's the promoter going way too far. Um, again, we were talking about Scott Hall and WCW and how they did that, and it's like I just I don't see any purpose in it at all. I don't see any point in dragging somebody's struggles into a wrestling storyline so millions of people can see it and you're either playing it for laughs or you're trying to make them a sympathetic babyface when they're already over and they don't need it anyway.
And for anybody who says, well, they have to agree to it, yes. However, it's also called, well, your boss, who's a multi, or at the time just a single billionaire, who controls everything in wrestling, and they said, hey, we want to do this storyline. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, it'd be a shame, if all of a sudden next week your future endeavored.
Exactly. It's like he literally holds your livelihood in his hands. So a lot of people have done a lot of things over the years because they didn't want to lose their job.
Yeah.
It's just, especially during the time when, AEW didn't exist and New Japan Pro Wrestling wasn't an international hotbed like it is now, and the indie scene wasn't nearly as hot as it is right now. There was nowhere else for them to go, for people to
Yeah.
go, especially when Vince basically bought ECW and WCW. There was nowhere else to go until TNA popped up,
And even
and
then,
even
TNA
then
has
TNA,
never been legit competition for WWE.
no, they were a distant number two, but I mean they were an alternative. There was somewhere
Right.
else for people to go and work. But for a time, it was WWE or nothing. And so you're going to do whatever to keep your job, just like when Chavo Guerrero was Kerwin White. And he was, you know, they
Ugh.
stripped away all of his Hispanic heritage and everything. It was never discussed. And He was bleached his hair, shaved his face, because Chavo always had a little bit of facial hair, and had him riding out on a golf cart saying, if it's not white, it's not right.
He was part of, a one of the royal families of wrestling.
Oh yeah,
The
absolutely. Because
Guerreros are. You don't
yeah,
change
like
a Guerrero.
when Cody says wrestling has more than one royal family, yeah, the Guerreros are wrestling royalty.
Yes.
And to strip that away to make him a parody of something is just disrespectful. It's
Oh,
disrespectful to his heritage. It's disrespectful to his family. It's disrespectful to him. And sadly, the only reason that he got away from that character, that he could stop doing it, is because of Chris Benoit's passing.
Lord.
Um,
Oh, but yeah, that once again, sometimes they bring out a character and you just feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
Uh,
not Chris Benoit's passing. Eddie's passing
Eddie's
is
passing.
when he was able to go back to being a Guerrero, and it's just I just don't. Again, I don't see the point in it. I don't understand. You have you have a billionaire who has been involved in the wrestling business forever, for decades. He should know better. He's had people on his staff that were involved in wrestling for decades. They should know better.
Hmm.
The writers, the TV writers that he's got now, should know better. It's like, come up with something better. Stop using these are just old, tired plot devices.
Yep. You can't. It should have never been to the point of you're saying, well, these two people are different. They look different from each other, or we'll say somebody is from a different country. Boom, let's put them against each other. Boom, now that's a reason to fight, especially when the majority of the people were not actually from the countries they said they were from.
Well, yeah, and it's
But
like that was like in the mid '80s. That was like every promotion you
yeah,
had. If you were Russian, if you were playing a Russian character, you were automatically the enemy
yep,
because
it was the height of the Cold War, so
yeah,
it was playing off of real
yeah,
political scenarios. But
yeah, but it's like, and a lot of times it's just like it always paints, you know, whenever they use that as a plot device, it always paints, it's always like, if you're not from America, then you're automatically the enemy. And it's like, that's not fair to, because if you have people from other countries that don't follow wrestling like we do and don't understand some of the behind the scenes stuff and take it just literally, you're going to lose a whole fan base of people because they're going to think that you're disrespecting, you know, their culture or their people. Like when JBL did the goose step when they were in Germany,
in Germany, which is illegal,
which is illegal. Yeah. Another example is when Chris Jericho
he
threw
did
down
something to the Brazilian
with
flag.
the Brazilian flag and was going to, if Vince hadn't got him out of it, he was looking at quite a bit of jail time in Brazil.
Yeah, and, I mean, and he didn't know. I mean, that was one of the
And he
things.
didn't know, but it's
Yeah,
like he didn't know, but some of the producers backstage knew,
they knew.
but they were like, go, you can go out and get this heat. Just like JBL knew.
JBL should have known, and that okay.
There's no way he couldn't have known because everybody knows that Germany is smart. Germany has always been smart enough to be like, here is a awful time in our history. So anybody tries to use any of that for any reason, it's illegal. And we're not having it. We're just not having it. And for him to do the goose step in Germany and think it was okay.
I guarantee you, Baron von Raschke, who played the part,
Uh huh.
of a German, even though well, his name actually was Raschke. but his first
Yeah,
name was Jim. It actually wasn't there,
Jim.
but he was from
Jim.
Nebraska. Yeah, Jim Roshka, not
Yeah,
von Roshka, but Roshka. And so he had German heritage, but he would have the the claw, and he would actually do two
yeah,
steps. Guarantee if they did a European tour, he's like, yeah, I ain't doing that tonight.
yeah. It's like I'm not doing that. No,
I'm not doing that. I'll do the
it's
claw.
like no,
You know.
and it's like I just don't like. Makes no sense.
Oh, but and see that's when like wrestlers and sometimes promotions, they go too far with how they interact and how they get heat.
Hmm.
And really, it's how they get heat and not cheers. Because it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's you can get a cheap pop, but you can't get a cheap pop by necessarily insulting somebody because not everybody's going to cheer that.
yeah. You can pull a McFoley and get a cheap pop just saying the town that you're in. I mean, it's easy to get a cheap pop, but you can't. Cheap heat does not help you.
Right. And
Like
or
even
even
Rick Rude. Rick Rude would always say, shut your mouth, all you fat, smelly sweat hogs or whatever. He wasn't attacking someone personally. He was
right.
just using a broad insult for the entire crowd that was there. It would have been different if he was insulting one particular person, attacking something about that person. And that's
Um
where I think a lot of people don't don't get the difference between heel heat and cheap heat.
and and I told you about this when it happened a little over a year ago up in Chillicothe, the first fan fest I went to, when Mr. Hughes.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I told you what he said in the ring because most of the crowd was like, "Oh my God, did he just really just say that?" And then he said something else when first he used the a term. It's in fact both these terms are compound word terms or two word terms. Um, the first one starts with the word house, and you can kind of guess what the second word is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And then the next one he used, it was less than a minute later, the first word was porch.
Yeah. It's like,
And
sir.
everybody's reaction was like, oh, it was like one thing is you're laughing, but not because you think it's funny, because you're laughing at the
it's a
absurdity.
nervous laugh, like
Like,
I
did I
cannot
really
believe
just
he just
hear
said
that?
that. Yeah. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then of course my son's sitting there confused. He has no idea why
Right.
everybody's having these reactions, which I'm kind of glad he was confused because,
Yeah.
so that he's not around that,
Mm,
and of course before we put him out of school, yeah, some of the kids his age were saying things like
yeah.
that, and like, well, you know where they're getting it from, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So, um, but I was still like, oh, like sometimes it's like, oh, ha ha ha. He's like, oh, oh, that kind of laugh. Like you
Yeah.
said, the kind
Yeah.
of nervous laugh, like, oh my God, did he really just say that? And they've had him back at the next two events in Chillicothe. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they're okay with it, but I'm like, okay,
I'm, yeah.
I
It's
still
like,
haven't, I still have not met him yet. I don't know if I feel comfortable, you
yep.
know, because I was like, dude, I mean, and he's carrying the Undertaker's urn. He's still dressed up because remember, Mr. Hughes always dressed up sharp, and
He always
he's
had
about
the
a
dress slacks, dress shirts, suspenders. Yeah. He always had the whole
sunglasses,
thing. Yep. With the
um,
strap on them so they
with
wouldn't
the
fall off.
strap on him, about 150 pounds lighter than what he was when he was a wrestler.
Mm,
Because I guess he had to lose weight, like really had to lose it for his own health.
yeah.
Um, but he still shouldn't have said what he said.
No.
you
No.
know,
No.
and I was like, okay. And he must, I don't know where he actually resides. He must be somewhere fairly close that he's making all those events in Chillicothe. Because there's a couple and
Probably.
they show up at all of them. Shark Boy is from Dayton, so he goes to all the ones
Oh,
in
okay.
Chillicothe.
Yeah.
Shane Douglas, Pittsburgh, not that
Yeah.
far of a drive, so he makes it to all those as well. So, um, but yeah, so that one is one of the things I thought it kind of went too far with the um with that kind of language.
Yeah.
Me having to explain to my son, on the way home, what does that mean? I'm like, well, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything nice. How about that?
Yeah. It's like
Um,
we just leave it at that. Yeah.
just you know, um,
Well, even MJF, I'm a huge. I think he's the best heel in the business. There's times he goes too far. He went. There was a clip that I saw on TikTok earlier today, to where it was it was when before Dynamite started. He was just there talking to the live crowd, and he's cutting a heel promo. But he starts talking about how the whole crowd should have been aborted and things like that. And it's like, oh no,
um,
that's too far, buddy. No, that's too
mm,
far. And it's just, you got to know where that line is. And I get that sometimes, especially for younger guys, it's hard to know where that line is, but you've got to learn it. You got to be able to read. You got to be able to read the room and know what you can and cannot say. And if you're not sure, ask a veteran who knows what you
yeah,
can and cannot say. I mean, they're there to help you, to guide you. And you have any question about, oh, is that too much? If you have to question it, then it's you've gone too far.
yeah.
If you've got to think, oh, is this going to cross the line? Then yeah, then don't say it because it's going to cross the line.
Uh, well, then just to kind of flip the script a little bit, what about when fans go too far? And I can think of the first example when, like I said, this is something that happened about a year and a half ago. The night John Moxley returned after being in rehab, and
Yes,
yes, and the
yes,
fan who said something like called him a drunk or an alcoholic, something relating to that.
yeah.
Everybody,
Something relating to that, and he said something about his family too, as far as his alcohol problems, and Moxley let him have it, and AEW's security, that
yeah,
guy was gone. There was
yeah,
another one in AEW to where, if anybody doesn't know, Nyla Rose is a trans woman, and there was a guy in the front row holding up a sign directed at her. Her name was on the sign, making fun of her for being trans, and she just kind of looked, didn't even give him the time of day. But then security's like, absolutely not. And that dude has been banned from AEW shows.
we should be because I mean, you're that's a personal thing,
Exactly. That is a
you know.
personal attack. Another fan did the same thing to Jade Cargill, had a sign with something racist on it. And she did the best thing possible, though. She walked by, flipped him the bird, and kept going. And that's the only acknowledgement that he got from her. She didn't even change her game face. She still had her game face on. She flipped that dude off and kept going. Of course, dude got walked out too by security, as he should have. It's just, yes, you buy a ticket. Yes, you're there to enjoy the show, but that ticket does not give you carte blanche to be a terrible human being.
Exactly. And if you want to try to get your little 5 minutes of fame where you're on TV, oh, look at me. Well, you just showed your rear end. That's what the only reason you're on
Yeah,
TV.
you showed your rear end, and you also look like a fool because security people on live TV are seeing security march you out. So
Yeah, enjoy the last time you ever went to one of those shows.
exactly,
You
because now
know,
you're banned. And the thing
now you're
is, you
banned.
paid all this money for this ticket, and these people paid money for front row tickets so their signs could be seen good on camera, on the hard cam. You just lost all that money because you just got kicked out. And like Nyla Rose was the first match when that guy pulled that crap. So it's like you waited in line, paid all this money for the ticket, all this stuff, got seated, wanted to be a disgusting human, and now you're thrown out and you're banned.
Well, hope that was fun for you.
Yeah,
Hope it was worth it.
hope
You
when
know,
you're with your buddies, you get to, you know, ride the coattail of that stupid incident.
yeah. So 10 years from now, when you're drinking a beer at the bar, watching the AEW show that's happening, 10 blocks away from you, but that you can't go
Exactly.
to,
Yep.
Would you look at your woohoo, look what I did. Remember when I did that? And they go,
Yeah. And
yeah,
they're
Ralph.
like,
Yeah, we
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we
We
remember
remember when
that.
you were,
Dummy.
yeah, stupid.
Yeah.
But
You
yeah,
know,
fans can definitely go too far with wrestlers, even down to throwing things on people. I remember uh, Shawn Michaels was coming out at Survivor Series '97 for his title match with Brett. Um, a fan threw their drink. I don't know if it was beer or pop or whatever it was or water, but they literally threw their drink on the side of his head. Of course, he just slicks his hair back. Sean being heel Sean just slicks his hair back and keeps going. But that's uncalled for. Somebody did the same thing to Scott Hall in WCW. He's cutting a promo. Somebody throws their drink literally in the back of his head. But Scott Hall, being the coolest man alive, just smooths his hair down, finishes his promo. You never would have known it bothered him, just because that was just Scott Hall. But throwing stuff in the ring, like when they would throw trash in the ring, like when Hogan turned and the NWO was formed and people were throwing stuff, and it's like you get to be upset, but you don't get to throw stuff at the wrestlers.
exactly. And Shawn Michaels, now one of the times, I think it was after that Survivor Series. I think they were like up in Massachusetts and they were doing a promo for the upcoming WrestleMania, which was 14 against Steve Austin,
Yes, yeah,
and somebody threw batteries
yeah,
and
and
hit him.
caught him like right in the temple, and he's like, "Nope, not doing it," and he took off.
Yeah,
He left. Sean was in a bad place, like
he was.
mentally at that time. He was battling addiction and things like that. But still, I can't say that I blame him because people were literally throwing batteries at him, and he got hit. It made him mad, and he refused to do the thing. And I can't say that I blame him because there was no call. There was no sense in that.
Now, if somebody's going to be dumb enough to throw one of their beers at somebody, I've
Yeah,
never, I've never gotten a beer at any kind of sporting event. To tell you the truth, I can tell you that they ain't cheap.
they ain't cheap. You're paying $9, $10 for a cup of beer.
Yeah, and if it spills, oh well, we ain't giving you another one. That thing's $10.
Yeah, yeah. This ain't free refills. This ain't McDonald's. You don't get free refills.
Yeah, trust me. If you go to any kind of sporting event, you're not getting a free refill.
Oh no,
you
it's like
know,
if you make it to your seat and knock it over, oh well,
oh well.
too bad.
Now Disney will give you a free refill if you spill it. I just
Yeah.
want to throw that out there, but we know that personally. You know, if your kid drops his ice cream cone because he's trying to eat it sideways, even though you tell him not
Yeah.
to because it's going to drop, yeah, they will give you another one right then if you're
Yeah.
right there, because that's what happened to us because my kid was
Yeah.
trying to eat it sideways. That happened a couple years ago, um, but I never a weird comparison. Nickelback
hmm
within the past year or two, they were over playing somewhere in Europe, and they
I
got.
like Nickelback, by the way. They get a bad rap.
So do I. I really like Nickelback. Very talented band. Chad Kruger should probably stop talking every once in a while, but
Yeah,
as a
he needs to
band,
quit talking. Just stick to singing, but
singing, playing,
just keep your
good
opinions to
band.
yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they write their own music. They play their own instruments. You
Uh-huh.
know, um, but they went on stage and the audience just started booing. The entire audience was like Nickelback haters,
Yeah.
and so finally, they left. I mean, it was somewhere in Europe. I don't want to say it was England. I think it was somewhere like Norway. And I could be wrong, so please don't quote me on that. I have to go back and look it up. But I will say he handled it, kind of classy. Like afterwards they asked him about it. He's like, you know what? If they're going to be dumb enough to pay that kind of money to come and boo us, he's like, we're getting paid regardless.
Exactly. It's like we got paid. We didn't have to exert all that energy putting on the performance.
Yeah, he's like, why would you
We
want
just,
to pay just to go boo somebody when you could
yeah,
go spend the time doing something else? You paid all that money,
yeah,
just to boo somebody. That's dumb.
yeah,
You know,
yep.
Now wrestling, yeah, you'll pay to go boo somebody because that's part of the thing.
That's part of the thing. Yeah, you pay to go boo the heels. Or if it's
Hmm.
a face you don't like, you boo them too.
You
But
kind of booed. um,
uh, but yeah, it's just yeah, fans as well as wrestlers can absolutely go too far. And I think people just need to think, fans need to stop and think, this person is playing a character. It's no
mhm.
different than going and watching a movie. This person, I mean, just because you see somebody play a bad guy in a movie doesn't mean they're a bad guy in real life. So you got to kind of remember you can't just attack this person, you know, just because, oh, well, they're the bad guy and I'm supposed to boo them and supposed to not like them. And on the flip side of that, wrestlers have to remember these are paying customers. These people help pay your salary. You know, so yes, they have a right to interact with you to a certain point, but it doesn't give you a right to just personally attack someone for a medical condition, a disability, anything, and use it to get cheap heat because it's not even cheap heat. Like Steve said, it's disgusting heat. Is
Yeah,
all it is.
and the fans going too far, like the ones who all of a sudden they will jump in the ring or even outside the ring and actually physically attack the wrestlers, um, or the managers,
Yes. Yes.
or the valets, or somebody who's
Yep.
actually one of the talent.
Yeah.
Um, because I've seen a video. This came out within the past couple of years. Um, it was a female valet, with one of the it was an indie show, and she got into a um verbal altercation, I guess, with a fan. All of a sudden, the fan jumped over, the what little bitty tiny clothesline barricade they had
Yeah.
and attacked the woman, and like from behind and grabbed her. I mean, they had to
Oh
separate
Lord.
them.
That's like Starcade Starcade 96. Hogan was in, he had been a heel for like 6 months. He just turned at Bash at the Beach and he was facing Roddy Piper in the main event, not for the world heavyweight title, but
That's beside
anyway,
the point.
um a fan, my brother was at the it was in Nashville. And my brother was there and this fan jumped in the ring and was going to stab Hulk Hogan and security just swarmed him and drug him out of the ring. And my brother's like, he's like, did you see Doug Dillinger like down the aisle? I'm like, no, they cut away. I just saw security grab him, take him out of the ring, and then they cut away real quick. And he's like, Doug Dillinger beat the crap out of that dude all the way to the back. But and it's something like that. There was on Raw back in 2002. It's Rob Van Dam and Eddie Guerrero ladder match for the IC title. A fan jumps in the ring to attack Eddie Guerrero,
Yes. Yep.
um,
And pushes him off the ladder.
and pushes him off the ladder. Um, there was a fan that jumped in the ring at a house show. Triple H was wrestling Steve Austin. Fan jumps in the ring to attack Triple H. Steve Austin beat the crap out of the dude until the security could get there. And then, and Earl Hebner held him down. Once they got the dude down, Steve Austin got him off Triple H, got a few shots in to get him off. Earl Hebner held him down until security got there. Um, just stuff like that. It's like you have no business getting in the ring. And I have no sympathy for any fan who gets in the ring because once you cross into between those ropes, you're entering their world, their
Hmm.
territory, and you get what you get. Because if you jump in the ring to attack a wrestler and they beat the crap out of you, that's what you get. Because it ain't going to be any different than if you're on the street and attack somebody. They're going to beat the crap out of you there.
Yep. Kind of like the fan. This happened down in Covington. I want to say it was one of the first shows they had in Covington after the pandemic, and this guy was dressed up like a referee.
Hmm.
Okay, you
I
see
remember
fans.
you telling me about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he and Larry D was actually one of the wrestlers in the match. It was the main event, and he's about to have his last match, by the way.
Oh, okay.
his retirement match down in Cynthiana. Um, but this guy, he jumped over like the way they do it in Covington, like the front row, they actually have tables. You've seen it on the videos where
Yep.
there's
Yep.
tables that surround the ring, right? This guy jumps over the table. He's dressed up like a ref, gets in the ring, and boom, boom, boom. Well, everybody's confused. Like, hey,
It's like,
is he like a
why was there a
special
3 count?
guest and no bell? And then he
Yeah.
stood up, and Andrew Reed um, was on the outside of the ring. So I want to say it may have been Larry D against Joshua because Andrew
Mhm.
Reed, usually accompanied Joshua. The guy stands up, Andrew Reed, he's up on the ring apron. He grabs it, he starts dotting that I a couple
Oh
times.
yeah. I mean, you stepped into their world. You get
Mm-hmm.
what you get. And
Yep.
that's a definite perfect example of fans going way too far. It's like you have, unless it is a photo op and you are invited into the ring, you have no
Right.
business being in there. You have absolutely no business getting in the ring unless a wrestler or promoter invites you into the ring.
Which the NWF, they do that at usually at the beginning and during the intermission at their shows. They'll have the faces. It's not the heels, but they'll have the faces. A lot of
Yeah.
them will be in the ring. You can go in the ring, and they'll do a Polaroid with you for $5. So
Yeah. When Impact was still TNA, they had a house show when I was living in Murray. They had a house show in Murray, and I went, and they did that with the faces. The fans could come in the ring, get a picture taken with the faces, because when AJ was performs, trying to think who else, Rhino when he was a face at the time, stuff like that. But that was different. You're
very
invited into the ring to take a
yes,
picture. You're not jumping into the ring to try to cause physical harm to a wrestler. I mean, because that fan that pushed Eddie off that ladder, Eddie, that I mean, luckily Eddie was such a good athlete, he was able to kind of maneuver to where he didn't really hurt himself on the ladder because he could have landed bad. Because when the guy pushed him, like the ladder buckled, and
hmm
Eddie could have come like straight down and like really hurt himself on that ladder.
and once again, that's one of them things where, well, dummy. Hopefully, you enjoyed tonight because you're never going to a WWE event
Yeah,
ever again.
nope.
You know,
You
um,
yeah,
yeah, and your little 5 minutes of fame there. Because guess what? Here, yes, we're talking about the guy. I couldn't tell you his name. We just referred to
right,
him as an idiot
exactly.
who jumped in the
Yeah,
ring.
I couldn't tell you any of these people's names, but I remember what they did and I remember how stupid they were. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the lasting memory of a fan that goes too far is you're not famous, you're infamous. And there's a world of difference.
yeah. I mean, and it's just like a couple years ago when Roman Reigns was getting to go away. He was supposed to be a
Yeah,
face, but
yeah.
they he was getting attacked by fans
Uh-huh.
left and right. People jumping in the ring, or
Yeah.
trying to get him, yeah, out, as they're walking down. The one they had, it was um, Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, of course, John Moxley now, and it was a mystery partner, which turned out to be Chris Jericho. And
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
yes, they were going against the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt,
Yeah.
um, well, Don Huber, of course, he passed away now, but Eric Rowan and oh my lord, um, what was John Huber's name in
Luke Harper.
Luke Harper? I'm telling you, I'm getting old. I'm having a hard time remembering names. But yeah, so the Wyatt family, and as they're showing this, all of a sudden, some genetic defective jumps in the ring, and he goes up, and he's like right up against Roman Reigns, and he's got on like the flak jacket and everything, like like the Shield wore,
Yeah.
and and of course the
Yeah,
camera
and he stands
stands
up like
there,
that,
yeah, and of course the camera immediately cuts away because they're not going to give
Yeah.
them the time of day. They're not going to
Yeah.
give them this attention that they crave. And it turns over, and Bray Wyatt's looking like, "Is that your partner?"
Yeah, it's like this guy?
This guy, and he's like, "That'll be real easy." And Dean Amber's like, "It ain't him."
Yeah.
So they handled it great.
Oh
Um,
yeah, they handled it great, but still that fan had no business getting in there because it could have went really bad for that fan.
yeah, enjoy the show. if you ever get a chance to actually meet the wrestlers, which that is one of the things about like a lot of the indie places, like the NWF, you do get a chance to actually meet them more than what you would necessarily like one of the major companies. Um, the WWE events that I've been to, I have never had the chance to actually meet any of the performers. The last one we went to up in Columbus, we thought we were meeting Enzo and Carmella. Turns out it was a really, really good lookalike because I know I sent you the picture. We found out
Yeah,
later on.
yeah,
I mean, I was like, holy crap. I mean, he had everybody fooled, you know.
yeah.
But um, but I have yet to be able to meet any of them. And
Hmm.
of course, I mean, um, with them, it is a little different because I mean, they are so in the spotlight, so
Yeah,
they do
yeah.
have to worry about somebody who might take things too far, kind
Hmm.
of, the
Yep.
topic of the show. Um, and most of the fans will probably be, but I mean, they've also hit that level too, where they're like, "You want to meet me? Yeah, that'll be $20."
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
you want me on your podcast? That'll be a lot more, and you got to go through. Um, well, actually, talking with Lance Archer, super nice guy, by the way. But he said we'd actually have to go through AEW's
Yeah,
public affairs
yeah,
office. I'm like, okay, I get that. So he
yeah.
said, yeah, I mean, and that's because they're under contract with them, so they have to, you
Yep,
know, um, so they kind of have to do. Like, hey, the Reds just beat the Cardinals. I don't know if you're a Cardinals fan or not, but
yep.
the Reds just beat the Cardinals in innings. You know,
Oh,
um,
damn.
at St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And my son hates the Cardinals because the very first Reds game he ever went to, they were playing the Cardinals, and the Cardinals won. He hated the Cardinals every time.
Ah, gotcha.
Um, Now I will say that the Cardinals, their fans, they will travel because half that stadium is Cardinals fans.
Right, right.
It's only about a 4 or 5 hour drive from St. Louis to
Oh,
Cincinnati,
okay.
so it's really not that far. Uh, Too far for a day trip, especially if you're going to watch a 3 hour baseball game.
Yeah,
But definitely close enough where you can go down, stay in a hotel, especially say for the entire series, and stay in a hotel for a few days. But anyway, back to wrestling,
right.
and if it's going too far. so, um, I'm trying to think of other examples of fans, um, fans going too far. But I mean, we've kind of covered, where the fans where they hit on some things that are kind of it should be off limits for anybody because
Yeah.
they forget those wrestlers are still human beings,
Hmm.
you
Yep.
know, um, and are the ones who jump in and physically attack, like knock somebody from the ladder. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, and this isn't like back in the days when it was real, you
Right,
know,
right.
where these old grandmas, they were stabbing dudes. Ole Anderson
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
hawkbill knife run up because I mean
yep,
it was portrayed as everything was being completely legit. Those were
yeah.
also fans going too far, but
Yes. Yep.
um, but how often do you see that in any other sport, like boxing, except for the one dude whose mother jumped in the ring and started punching? That was like
Yeah,
years ago. You remember what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Like 30,
That was
40 years
hilarious though.
ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude's mom got in the ring and started hitting the other guy with a, yeah, beat my baby.
Yeah.
and um, but you don't see that very often. And boxing would be one of the things where it would look like it is personal. MMA, same thing. I've never heard of a fan jumping in the octagon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, why do people think it's okay to do it in a wrestling?
I don't know.
You know, I'm still waiting for um, basketball. I, okay, football. It's hard for you to get out to the field, even though I saw it
Yeah.
in Wembley. I saw a guy. He ran across the
Yeah.
field. The streaker. You saw him. He's a British guy. He was drunk and
Yeah.
but he didn't attack anybody. Um,
Right.
Monica Seles was attacked on the tennis court in Germany. You remember
Hmm.
that back in like
Yep.
1992.
Yeah.
He somehow got past the security guards and everything and stabbed her because he was a fan of like what Steffi Graf or somebody like that.
Yeah, I
And
think so. Yeah.
yeah, um, kudos to Monica Seles though. I mean, she came back and she still did pretty well for herself in tennis.
Yeah.
But, man, I can't believe that was over 30 years ago now.
I know, right?
Well, um, baseball, you can't just get on that field. for baseball
No.
because I mean the security guards and plus I mean if you want to try to get on the dugout and then try to it's not going to happen. You can jump over the those walls like in the outfield or something, but
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
good luck. Basketball, there
Yeah, you're
is
right there.
nothing.
Yeah. Nothing stopping you. Yeah.
Yeah, and which sport anymore has like the most fights happening on the like the field, court, pitch, whatever we want to call it?
Basketball. Yeah.
Basketball.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Look at the Malice in the Palace in
yes,
Detroit. Yep.
yep. Yeah, that. I mean, and every year, you go on YouTube, just say like just punch in NBA fights, pick
Yeah.
a year, and they'll have
Yep.
like the best fights for
Hmm.
that year. And a lot
Yep.
of times, I mean, it's just a couple of guys shoving each other, and because I mean that
Yeah.
basketball is a very physical sport. I mean, you're always bumping up against each other, and football can, obviously football's physical, but you don't see as many fights there.
Yeah.
But basketball, I mean, you like eye gouges and stuff like that. And you the Mouse in the Palace was Ron Artest and Steven Jackson
Yeah.
running up
Yep.
into the stands because the guy
Yeah.
threw a beer on it. Once
Yeah.
again, that beer cost $10 and you threw it at someone,
Hmm.
dummy. But um, but there's nothing that separates that. So
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for them to go. Maybe we should put up some kind of barricade,
Yeah.
because
I don't know.
basketball fans are very, very passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
But
NBA fans. So
but yeah, fans and wrestlers alike, they just show a little more respect to each other and not get personal. Just keep it broad. Be a fan that heckles. Be a heel that get your heat, but don't be disgusting about it.
yeah, and you even see it on Twitter. Of course, fans, on Twitter, anybody on Twitter, you
Yeah.
know, um, the keyboard warriors. I
Yeah.
can I can say what I want because I won't have to face any repercussions from it. It's like,
Right.
yeah, sure, yeah, because they won't find out who you are ever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
their ways. So,
Yeah.
well, unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to have any guests tonight because,
Yeah.
but maybe
Stuff happens. Yeah.
stuff happens. We were planning on recording tonight anyway, because we are back to our normal recording schedule, about as normal as what we can get. Because anybody's been giving us a show for a
Life.
while, yeah, life.
Yeah.
Um, hopefully, we will both. Well, actually, it sounds like you don't need to find employment as much as what you did before because it sounds like the food truck is going great.
Yeah, it's going pretty good. You know, hopefully it takes off. So we'll wait and see.
And I'm still looking. So, actually, I mentioned my son is like, "Why don't we do a food truck?" I'm like, you know, um, yeah, I wouldn't know it had the first thing it had a. And there's actually, oddly enough, around here, there's already kind of a saturated market for food trucks.
All
So
right.
you would
Yeah.
have to, kind of figure
Yeah.
out what there's, the house 2 houses away from us, they have a food truck that they take sometimes
Oh, okay.
places. So, um, but uh, but in the meantime, looks like we will be back here tomorrow. Like I said, we're supposed to have an interview with Big Mama and Breezy, both to talk about Revolution Rising. And it's like Wednesday, we're going to have some Vela Sweet. So we might have somebody, but if we don't have anybody, so it's a normal day anyway. So,
Yep.
but I can say actually until tomorrow, my friend, good night
All right.
and God bless.
God bless.